Welcome to the STEM Pathways with Rohan Sharma podcast, where we dive into the exciting world of science, technology, engineering, and math. In each episode, we share exciting stories, groundbreaking research, and inspiring interviews with experts and enthusiasts who are pushing the boundaries of innovation. Whether you're a student, a professional, or just curious about how the world works, join us as we explore the endless possibilities of STEM. Let's get started. Today, I'll be interviewing Karu Sankaralingam, who's currently a computer science professor at UW-Madison and a principal research scientist at NVIDIA. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Nice talking to you, Rohan.
Yeah, so to get started, I wanted to ask what made you choose your major for your undergrad and what your experience was like at IIT Madras.
So I have a slightly unusual story, and then the pathways in India are now different. Growing up, they essentially, and it's still some parts are still true. You wrote this um, exam, which is 3 or 4 hour exam. Now I actually forget. And then you get a rank. Based on your rank, you get to choose where you are. So and the highest ranked people will generally go to computer science. So my rank was not high enough, I guess, to do an undergrad computer science major. So my major was in aerospace engineering, but I loved working with computers. And then after my undergraduate degree, I came to grad school to work on a computer science degree.
So when you were doing your undergrad, what made you think about doing grad school? And what made you fall in love with computer science specifically?
Yeah, so I fell in love with computer science as during maybe my, I guess, middle school. I remember they started a computer science program in my school where they had like a lab with this computer. It's called the BBC Micro. You could program it in BASIC, and I just kind of fell in love with it, and I decided this is what I like. This is what I wanted to do for a career. So that's how I started. And sorry, then the thing was that your question? And then you asked,
Yeah. Oh, why'd you want to go to grad school?
oh yeah, the reason I wanted to grow, I think it's mostly because for me, I liked doing new things, and for me that felt like, and then I think pretty early on I knew that I wanted to become a professor, so therefore it was very logical set of steps, which is I needed to get a PhD to become a professor.
Yeah. So what was your research about at UT Austin?
So that was a great time. So my PhD research was at the time. It was in the research community, the idea was just coming to consensus that it was very hard to build CPUs, microprocessors, the way we were building them. This was early 2000s. And so my research was kind of revisiting a somewhat old idea called data flow to try and understand data flow and composable or polymorphous designs. How could we build a microprocessor in a different way that allowed us to continue getting high performance out of them compared to conventional designs? So that's kind of the very abstract description of my dissertation work. And as part of that, we actually built a prototype chip. We manufactured it through IBM Foundry. I have the photos, and I think I have a couple of samples still from that chip. So it was great.
Yeah. So what was the first job you did after finishing grad school?
So in computer science, it is relatively common to basically directly become a professor. So after my PhD, I came to Wisconsin and started as a professor here. That was like in 2007.
So, one kind of overarching question I have, obviously, computer science is one of those fields that is like very, very rapidly developed since you became a professor. How has research changed in it over the last 18 years?
That's actually a great question. So I would say up until, I mean, there's a little bit of I think everyone has their view. So I have my view, maybe a little bit controversial, but I would say up until 2 years ago, I think the mechanisms of how we do research and what research is, I don't think had changed. Like how I did research as a PhD student is kind of the same as how my PhD students do research now. The questions they look are different, the answers they find are different, but the how of the research is kind of largely remained the same. I think in the past 2 years, even more the past year, I would say, with the advent of Gen AI, the speed at which you can perform a literature survey, the effectiveness at which you can do it, it's just, it's changed things dramatically. And then second is if you have the idea, the core of an idea, until Gen AI and reasoning models, the way to move it forward is to brainstorm with your lab mates, brainstorm with the collaborators who are working on an idea, or brainstorm with your research advisor and so on. I think with reasoning models, how capable they are with well-crafted prompts, you can very quickly iterate on refinements of an idea. To me, I think that's been the biggest change that I've seen in the past year or two. I would say it was like a step function up until 2 years ago. I don't think how I did research changed. I think now I approach things very differently. Kind of almost the first step is once I've kind of said this is a problem worth thinking about, is kind of almost do like a devil's advocate brainstorming with poke holes at it with the Gen AI tool, which helps kind of, I would say, refine my thinking about it.
So, do you think generative AI is helping research as a whole, as much as it's helping computer science research specifically?
So I don't know. The honest answer is I don't know. I think the way and everybody's experience is different. So while I feel it increases my productivity, I actually don't know that I'm becoming more skilled or more knowledgeable. To me, I think that's one of the ways, and everybody uses it differently. And it unless you're very, very ultra conscious in using it, using its output to then improve your skill, there's a serious issue with kind of your skill level plateauing because this thing is so good in asking you to give you solutions.
And then as kind of more on like how AI is affecting learning and like actually gaining skills when you use it. As a professor, I know like computer science classes at UW-Madison often revolve around like project-based work. Do you see AI impacting students' work a lot?
I don't know. Short answer is I don't know. I think it's inevitable that it will. How it will, I don't know. And I think everyone is still trying to figure out what is the right way to incorporate it as part of a pedagogical teaching flow. I think there's one answer which is yeah, just use it. Like for example, I think in many companies, various forms of Gen AI based coding tools. Cursor is the best example, are pretty standard. Uh, but if you use it as a person who's just beginning to learn programming, there is a risk that you never learn programming. I could also argue the opposite, which is, well, maybe no one needs to learn programming. So um, I am, I guess, honest or humble enough to say I don't know what the issues all are. And I think this is just a time when we have to, as a community, figure out what all is involved here and figure out what we need to do.
Yeah. So, what is your research about right now? What kind of things are you focusing on?
Yeah, so the things I'm looking at right now are mostly in the realm of so some of you may have heard the term Moore's Law, maybe not, but it's from decades ago, which was the observation that transistors can be made smaller and smaller. And then this is a very simplified version. Because of that, you can put more transistors on a chip, and because of that, you can get higher performance. And there's an economics aspect to it, which is it actually takes more money to build these fabs that are necessary to make these chips. So most of the research I'm looking at right now is that the intersection of as the cost to build these fabs keeps increasing, and if it becomes more and more difficult to build more capable chips, what are the research questions at the intersection of how we design chips, what kind of new ideas go in there, with what is the economic benefit we get out of these chips because manufacturing them is getting more and more expensive.
And have you been focused on this research topic since you became a professor, or is this more recent?
This is the thing I've been looking at most recently. So over the years, when I started, one of the ideas I was looking at was refining some of these ideas from data flow computing and embedding them back into existing microprocessors. I did some work on understanding the reliability of transistors, and if machines were super unreliable, how would we build working machines out of them? Another thread of work with a couple of my PhD students I looked at was how do we build compilers using this mathematical technique called integer linear programming that would allow you to place different pieces of an instruction or piece of code in a way that was optimal, even though the underlying chip architecture itself changed.
Yeah. So, my next question relates more to what students can do who want to get involved in research as an undergrad. What do you think the best way is for someone to get involved with research in the first place?
That's a good question. I, I think for every student, it's different. I think the one of the most effective things you can do is just go talk to whichever professor you are taking a course with and tell them you're interested in research. If you have some broad area of research you're interested in, what that is, and ask them what opportunities do they know of that they could get involved in. And sometimes the course you're taking may be with a professor who's not actively involved in research, in which case they can point you to somebody else who is. Uh, that's what I would suggest. Just talk to the professors with whom you're taking classes and tell them you're interested in research, and that's what and see what they say.
Yeah. So, after talking to a bunch of people who have done research as an undergrad, I know there's like a big range as to like how much they accomplish. Because I know some kids are literally able to write a paper by the time they graduate, while others might just do like a little bit of busy work in the lab and not much actual research. The students in your labs who are the most successful, what kind of things do you see them doing that makes them stand out?
So I think let's say if we define, let's say, successful research as something tangible coming out of it, the variables outside your control are more numerous than the variables in your control. What I mean by that is the research problem, research topic you as an undergrad are end up working on needs to have reached a certain level of maturity that you can actually make some contribution and take it forward fast enough in the time that you're working there, right? So, um, from that, I actually don't have any strong heuristic that says what type of um, uh, approach leads to more successful research. The one thing I would say is um, be patient, right? Because research by definition is kind of its outcome is unknown, right? So be patient and be more try to be rather more focused on seeing if you're finding joy in the process and if you're learning things, less on the outcome of is this going to lead to a paper, when am I going to write the paper, and so on.
Yeah. I guess a better way of phrasing that question might be not like how well can an undergrad do research, but what can they get out of it?
Oh, what can they? Okay, from that perspective, I would say there are two things you get out of it. One is actually the most important thing, maybe you expand your professional network at a very early stage in your career. You get to know the professor, you get to know their graduate students, and they may all become professors elsewhere, or they may go become whatever, work in industry, whatever, right? So there's that networking aspect, and you will learn things that you won't necessarily learn from coursework, which is just the uncertainty of research, how people go about looking at research questions. So I would say just that intangible maybe is the most valuable thing. There are other kind of, let's call it mechanical, practical things too, especially if you're thinking you might want to go to grad school. Having done some research can be very valuable in making your package for grad school look more compelling than not having done any research.
Yeah. So before the podcast started, you're telling me how you're kind of unsure about what advice to give to people in the world of computer science. Do you want to dive into that a bit more and talk about how AI is affecting everything?
Yeah, so again, this is I read about three things a lot. One, obviously, I work in computer science, so but I'm not a deep learning scientist, but I know enough about what's happening with Gen AI. And my research expertise is in computer hardware, computer systems, so I have a good window into how effective they can be for future systems, right? And I feel Gen AI is becoming more and more capable, and it is definitely seems to be having an impact on what has conventionally been thought of as programming. Because for the longest time, programming was you write a program, you have like a interactive debugging window, you then debug it. It's all very, very human driven. Um, I think Gen AI is pretty radically changing that. Many CEOs of software companies have said what percentage of their code is being generated by Gen AI. And I think they've also clarified what they mean by that is a human is providing a prompt, and then the Gen AI provides a solution, and that solution is basically accepted unmodified, and it's bug free and so on, right? So that's really say when I say 25% is Gen AI generated, right? So what this to me going to kind of the labor market and for entry level jobs, it seems to be some consensus that um, they are going to be affected, right? There's a view that different entry level jobs will be generated. Uh, I don't know enough about it. So that's where I have a sense of uncertainty about what is going to happen in the short term. By that, I mean next 2 to 5 years. And so I think anybody who's starting their career now, who's graduating now, I know they're all thinking about these questions. So I unfortunately don't have a um, a strong opinion or a viewpoint on how this is going to play out.
So I guess predicting the future is kind of hard. One thing I have heard about like the current job market is that like getting a job in computer science is impossible. And like people talk about how much of a grind it is and like how many people are unemployed. What do you think the market is like right now?
So, first of all, it's actually interesting hear you say this as bluntly as you did. Because I've read a bunch of articles, and um, so short answer is I honestly don't know because kind of it's honestly possible that there's some breakthrough in the next, I don't know, 6 months, 1 year, where we do need kind of the huge number of undergraduate computer scientists. We have been historically graduating, and that's kind of uh, what the labor market needs. Talking about this purely from a kind of a job perspective, right? I should also add that I think a computer science degree or college degree, its value goes beyond the job that you get. So I just want to make sure that I do kind of express that viewpoint too. So um, I don't know. I simply don't have enough of a window into that aspect of it to tell you anything super specific or tangible enough here.
Yeah. So for my last question, do you have one piece of advice for someone who's still in high school or early in college wanting to follow a similar career path as you?
So my advice would be two things. One is find things that find slash try to do things that you really get joy out of, that you feel like, wow, I just love this aspect of it. And then I'm going to say something that completely contradicts it also. Simultaneously, also kind of like, and then this you'll see in your professional career. And then if some of you have probably played a musical instrument or tried to learn a new language, it's all you see it there, right? Uh, Doing things that you don't like and being able to kind of just grind through them is a useful skill to have. Try to kind of develop that also.
All right then. Thank you for joining me on the podcast today.
Yeah, it was so good talking to you, Rohan.